Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Jan. We've literally just sat down. Mics are on, that's it. I had a tiny moment today that made me laugh. I was speaking Chinese all day, and then my phone pops up and goes, "Your delivery is arriving." It felt oddly official.
Hello, I'm Casey. That notification voice is so confident, isn't it? Like it knows your life schedule better than you do. And it's always English as well, even when you're not in English mode.
Exactly. And then I open the app and it's track order, add a tip, rate your driver. I'm sat there thinking, I haven't studied anything today, but English has been hanging around like background music.
It's like English is that mate who doesn't leave. Not annoying, just always present. And you don't even notice until you do.
Right, and that got me thinking. Have you noticed some people's English improves in this slightly suspicious way? Like they're not doing hardcore study sessions, but they're moving forward anyway.
Yes, and it's always the ones who look the least stressed about it. You ask them, how are you getting better? And they're like, oh, I don't know. That's the worst answer.
It is. Meanwhile, the rest of us are like, I bought the book, I saved the podcast, I downloaded the app, and then we don't touch any of it for a week.
Because we're preparing. Preparing is such a comfy word. It sounds productive, but it's basically procrastination wearing a blazer.
That's painfully true. And the strange thing is, when you do use English in real life, even badly, it often works, like your shop story.
Oh yeah, I heard about 60% of what the guy said. The other 40% was just guessing and smiling. And it still worked. Nobody collapsed. He didn't look at me like, how dare you?
But then you come home and suddenly you feel like English has to be this serious thing. You need the perfect time, the perfect mood, the perfect notebook.
And the perfect desk lamp. And then you end up cleaning the desk instead of using English, which is honestly impressive.
So here's what we're curious about today. Not what's the best app or what's the best method. It's more like, what are those people doing day to day that keeps their English gently moving?
Yeah, because it doesn't look dramatic. It looks boring almost, but boring in a good way, like brushing your teeth. You don't write a motivational quote about it.
Exactly. And we're not going to dump 6 tips on you and call it a day. We're going to talk through it like normal humans, because that's how this stuff actually sticks.
So, if you're listening and you've ever thought, I'm trying, why am I not moving? You're not alone. We're basically going to unpack why some people keep English in their life without making it a full-time job.
All right, let's start from the simplest bit, the thing they do that looks too small to matter, but somehow it matters. Picking up from that, when I say some people's English moves in a slightly suspicious way, I'm not talking about the genius friend who reads The Economist for fun. I mean normal people, the kind who still say things a bit oddly sometimes, but somehow they're always a tiny bit better than last month.
Yeah, and it's annoying because they never look stressed about it. They're not doing the whole I'm on a journey thing. They just speak.
Exactly. And I keep seeing 2 types of people. Type 1 is the super organized one. They've got a timetable, a notebook, a color-coded app, maybe even a spreadsheet. They sprint for 3 days, feel amazing, then life happens and they disappear for 2 weeks.
The spreadsheet people always scare me a bit, respectfully. Because if I miss one day, I'd feel like I'd failed the entire system.
That's the problem. Their English progress becomes this big event, like today is English Day, and if English Day doesn't happen, it's 0. Then there's type 2. They look messy, their sentences aren't fancy, sometimes they're like how to say, and then they just go round it. But somehow, their English is always warm.
Warm is such a good word, like it's been left out on the counter, not shoved in the freezer.
Yes, and you can hear it. They might make mistakes, but they don't sound like they're dragging English out of storage every time. And that's what we're trying to get at today. It's not talent and it's not who has the best resources. It's more like what tiny choices are they making that keeps English present.
Because people love to blame resources. If I had that course, if I had that teacher, if I moved abroad. And then you meet someone abroad who still speaks zero English because they live entirely in their own language bubble.
That's such a big one. Being in an English country doesn't automatically mean English is in your day. And that's why I like your phrase from earlier, English mode. Some people never really switch it off, even if it's low power.
A low power mode. I love that. Like English is running in the background and it changes everything because the barrier to start is tiny. They don't need to psych themselves up.
Exactly. Whereas for the organized sprint people, starting English is like launching rocket. You need the perfect time slot, you need focus, you need to feel ready, and if you don't feel ready, you postpone it because it feels serious.
And serious tasks are easy to avoid. It's like I'm not avoiding English, I'm just waiting for the right moment. The right moment that never comes.
So the second type, the messy but moving people, they don't treat English like a serious task. They treat it like part of life. They'll reply to a message in slightly awkward English and move on. They'll watch a clip and not understand everything and still carry on.
Which sounds small, but it's massive. Because they're not making English a special occasion. It's like, oh, English is here, fine.
And that changes the whole system. I think a lot of people imagine progress is about intensity, like if I work hard enough in one go, I'll level up. But language doesn't really work like that, does it? It's more like frequency, how often it shows up.
Yeah, it's like watering a plant. Nobody waters a plant for 6 hours on Sunday and then ignores it for 2 weeks and expects it to thrive.
Exactly. And I'm not saying everyone has to touch English every day in some intense way. I'm saying the people who keep moving, they've made it easy for English to appear. Not heroic, just available.
Here's the other thing. They don't care that much if it's pretty. They care if it works. If the message gets across, job done.
That's spot on. It's like they're playing a different game. Some people are trying to get a perfect score, other people are just trying to keep the game running.
And that keep the game running bit is what most learners miss. Because if you stop for too long, you don't just lose vocabulary, you lose confidence, you lose rhythm, you forget what it feels like to speak.
Yes, and that's why people say I'm lazy. But sometimes it's not laziness, it's the restart cost. If restarting feels like pain, you avoid restarting. Then you call yourself lazy and feel worse.
Honestly, I think loads of people are stuck in that loop. It's not that they don't care, they care too much, and it turns English into pressure.
So for this episode, we're basically shifting the question. Not how do I study harder, but how do I design my week so English doesn't drop offline? Because once it stays online, progress looks way more natural.
And it's kinder too, because then you're not constantly judging yourself, you're just keeping the door open.
Exactly, and I think this is the bit people don't notice. The messy but moving people aren't doing one big impressive thing, they're doing small, unglamorous things that stop English from going cold.
Which is why it feels unfair, because you want progress to be dramatic. You want it to feel like a movie montage, but it's more like doing the washing up. Quiet, boring, and somehow it works.
Alright, so that's our why. Some people keep moving because their English doesn't disappear between study sessions. And now we can get more specific because the next bit is what do they do that removes the off-season, the gap, the empty weeks?
Yes, basically, how do they avoid the I'll start again on Monday trap? Because Monday comes and then Tuesday comes and suddenly it's next month.
Exactly, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that I'll start again on Monday trap. Because Monday is a lovely idea. Monday is like a fresh notebook. But in real life, Monday is just Monday. It's emails, laundry, and someone asking you where the charger is.
and Monday always arrives with zero warning. It's not like the universe sends you a polite memo like, "Dear Sir, Madam, your new life begins at 9 a.m."
So, when people say, "I'll study English properly when I have time," what they really mean is, "I'll study English when life stops happening," which is never.
That's the heartbreak, isn't it? And that's why the people who keep moving don't have an off-season. They don't wait for a perfect window. They just keep a tiny window open.
Yeah, they're not trying to do a massive session once a week. They're trying to touch English every day, even if it's tiny. And I know every day sounds intense, but it's not. It's more like brushing your teeth. You don't do it heroically.
Also, if you don't brush your teeth for 2 weeks and then do it for 3 hours on Sunday, you're not winning. You're just suffering.
That's a perfect comparison. And here's the bit that surprised me when I first read about it. In learning research, there's this very consistent finding that spreading practice out tends to stick better than cramming. So doing a little, often, usually beats doing a lot, rarely.
Which is deeply annoying, by the way, because everyone wants the dramatic "I studied for 6 hours" story.
Totally, and it's also why people get stuck. A lot of learners think if it's not an hour, it doesn't count. So if they have 20 minutes, they do nothing because it feels pointless.
It's like having a gym membership and only going if you can do a full 2-hour workout. So you go twice a year?
Exactly. Whereas the no off-season people go, "I've got 10 minutes, fine. English can show up for 10 minutes. They lower the entry fee, and because the entry fee is low, they actually walk through the door."
And it doesn't have to look like studying. That's the sneaky part, because people hear touch English daily and picture flashcards and guilt.
Yes, but when we say touch English, it can be ridiculously small. You listen to 2 minutes of something while you're making tea. You read one short message. You say one sentence out loud and laugh at yourself.
Okay, confession time. There are days when I cannot face studying. My brain is done. So my version is, I put on an English podcast while I'm washing up. Not because I'm disciplined, but because I'm trapped at the sink anyway.
That's brilliant though, because you're not negotiating with yourself, you're just attaching English to something you already do.
Exactly. And sometimes I don't even understand it properly, but it keeps English in the air. It's like leaving a lamp on in the hallway, so you don't walk into a pitch black house next time.
I love that image, because that's the real goal. You're not trying to be impressive every day, you're trying to avoid the pain of restarting from cold.
Restarting is brutal. It's not just "I forgot words", it's the whole vibe. You sit down and suddenly you feel like a beginner again. That feeling is what makes people quit.
Yeah, and once you've quit a few times, your brain starts associating English with that horrible restart feeling, so even opening a book feels heavy. That's why I keep saying, you don't need to be ambitious daily. You just need to keep the door slightly open.
And that's where the 10 minutes thing is so kind, because 10 minutes doesn't scare you. An hour scares you. An hour demands a ceremony. 10 minutes is just popping in.
Right, and we're not saying 10 minutes is some magic number, it's the mindset. English doesn't need a grand appointment. If English can show up in small ways, then it stays online.
Speaking of online, I think of it like Wi-Fi. If your Wi-Fi drops out all the time, every time you reconnect, you have to re-enter the password, everything buffers, you get annoyed, you give up. But if it's stable, you don't even think about it.
That's such a good way to put it. And for people listening, the goal isn't become fluent overnight. It's make your English Wi-Fi stable, so even on a busy day, you still get a signal.
Okay, I want to ask you something, Jan. When you say touch English daily, what do you do on days when you're just not feeling it?
Honestly, I cheat. I do the laziest possible version. Sometimes I'll rewatch a short clip I already know because I don't want new information. I just want English to be in my ears for a bit. Or I'll read something easy like a caption, and that's it. No guilt.
That's actually so helpful because people think it has to be new content to count. but on a tired day, new content is the reason you quit.
So the principle is, keep English present, but don't make it painful. And if you do that, there's no off-season. Even your lazy days still have a tiny trace of English.
And that tiny trace matters more than people realise, because it keeps the engine warm. It keeps you from needing a dramatic comeback.
So if you're listening and thinking, okay, but I can't do daily, I'd say don't overthink the word daily. It's not a badge, it's a direction. The direction is English shows up more days than it disappears.
That's fair. And it also means you stop doing the all or nothing thing. No more, I failed because I missed Tuesday. You just go, all right, back on it, 10 minutes.
And that's the real secret behind no off-season. It's not discipline, it's making the task small enough that you don't need to fight yourself. Which is why, in the next part, we can talk about something even more controversial. People who keep moving are often okay with not understanding everything. They keep going anyway.
Oh yes, the half understand and still continue lifestyle. Let's go there.
Let's go there. The half understand, still continue lifestyle. I think this is the bit that quietly blocks most people. It's not that they can't learn English, it's that they're waiting for a more complete version of themselves to show up first.
Like you're waiting for future you to walk in with better grammar and fewer emotions.
Exactly. And future you is always very confident, isn't it? Future you is like, when I'm ready, I'll speak. But then real you is in a real conversation and your brain goes blank halfway through a sentence. That blank moment is what people fear.
It's the horror film of language learning. You can feel your face getting warm and suddenly you're aware of your hands. Like, what do I do with these?
And because that moment feels so awful, people start postponing everything. They tell themselves, I'll speak when I've learnt more. But the more you postpone, the scarier speaking becomes, because you've trained your brain to treat speaking as danger.
It's like you're building a museum for your English. Everything has to be perfect, polished, behind glass, nobody touch anything.
That's such a good image. And the people who keep moving, they do something that looks reckless, but it's actually smart. They accept good enough English. They'll half understand and still keep going. They'll half say a sentence and still finish the task.
And to be clear, they're not proud of being wrong. They're just not terrified of being slightly wrong.
Yes, they separate I made a mistake from I am a failure. Most learners glue those two together, so one wrong word becomes I shouldn't speak at all.
And then you go home and replay it in your head like a courtroom drama. Exhibit A, the wrong preposition.
Exactly. Meanwhile, the other person has already forgotten the conversation. They've moved on with their life. So the question is, why are we punishing ourselves for something that didn't even matter to the listener?
Because we want to feel ready, and ready sounds responsible. But sometimes ready is just another word for I don't want to feel awkward.
That's the point. And here's a slightly nerdy detail, but I'll keep it human. A lot of studies show people feel like cramming works because it feels fluent in the moment. You sit there for 2 hours, everything feels familiar, you think, I've got it. But then a week later, it slips because your brain didn't have time to really build it in.
It's like a microwave meal. It feels hot, but the middle is still frozen.
Exactly, whereas the messy, imperfect, slightly awkward practice feels harder in the moment, but it sticks because you're actually retrieving words, actually forming sentences, actually dealing with real gaps. It's uncomfortable, but it's real.
I think that's the part people underestimate. They assume discomfort means I'm bad at English, but discomfort can also mean, oh, I'm actually using my English.
Yes, and if you're always waiting to feel comfortable, you'll never start, because comfort is usually the reward, not the entry ticket.
Okay, story time. Not inspirational, just true. I once had to sort something out on the phone, and I hate phone calls in my first language, let alone in English. I prepared a little script like a responsible adult, and then the person on the other end said something completely different.
Of course they did. That's the law of phone calls.
Exactly. And my brain just went, nope. I heard about half, so I did the only thing I could do. I said, sorry, could you say that again, a bit slower? Then I repeated the key bits back in a very clumsy way, and somehow the problem got solved.
That's the whole point. You didn't win because your English was perfect. You won because you stayed in the conversation.
Yes, I paid the awkwardness fee. That was the ticket. And after that call, I didn't suddenly become fluent, but my brain learnt, oh, we can survive this.
That's so important because each time you survive, speaking becomes less dramatic. And once it's less dramatic, you actually do it more, which means your English gets more chances to grow.
I've got a line for this. Some people treat English like a glass cup. They're terrified of dropping it. Other people treat it like a plastic cup. You drop it, you pick it up, you carry on.
That's perfect. And good enough English is basically choosing the plastic cup. It's deciding that English is a tool you're allowed to use, even if it's a bit scratched.
And it's not lowering your standards forever. It's lowering the barrier so you can actually practice in real life. Then your standards rise naturally because you've got more reps.
Exactly. And it connects back to what we said in Chapter 2. If English shows up daily, even in low power mode, you get used to being slightly imperfect. So you stop treating awkwardness as a disaster, you treat it as normal.
Which is quite freeing, honestly. Because then English isn't a test. It's just a thing you do.
So if you're listening and you're thinking, but I hate that blank moment, that's fair. Nobody enjoys it. But the people who keep moving have decided that the blank moment isn't a stop sign, it's a speed bump.
Very annoying speed bump. But you go over it and you're still on the road.
That's why we're not giving a bunch of techniques here. The shift is simply, I'll use English now and I'll fix it later. And once you accept that, you're ready for the next problem. Because some people don't just fear mistakes, they also obsess over progress.
Oh yes, the daily audit, the emotional accounting spreadsheet. Let's talk about that next.
Alright, so we've got English staying online and we've got good enough English. Now comes the next trap, the one that looks responsible. People start auditing themselves.
Auditing, yes. Like you're doing taxes, but for vocabulary.
Exactly. It's the weekly report mindset. How many words did I learn? How many lessons did I finish? Did I keep my streak? And to be fair, those things can help. I'm not here to bully notebooks.
Leave the notebooks alone. They've done nothing wrong.
But here's the uncomfortable question. After you finish your report, is English actually in your life? Or have you just created evidence that you're trying? Because those are not the same thing.
Oof, that one stings. Because evidence feels so satisfying. It's like, look at me, I highlighted things.
Exactly. And sometimes the highlight becomes the goal. You end up chasing the feeling of being organised instead of chasing the feeling of actually using English. So you feel productive, but English stays in a folder.
This reminds me of people who buy gym clothes and then never go to the gym, but they look sporty.
I think learners get trapped because progress becomes something you measure, not something you live. So you ask, what did I complete? Instead of asking, did English show up today, even for a second?
That second question is so much kinder, because most days the answer is actually yes, even if it's just reading a headline or hearing a phrase or replying cheers to someone.
There's another sneaky thing our brains do. We get fooled by smoothness. If something feels easy and familiar in the moment, we think, I've learnt it. But long-term learning often feels a bit effortful. You have to pull it out of your brain.
So if it feels slightly uncomfortable, that might actually be a good sign, which is so annoying.
It is, and it's why the daily audit can backfire. If you only reward yourself when things feel smooth, you'll keep doing the easy stuff. You'll rewatch the same video, read the same simple text, and it will feel great. But then you step into a real conversation and you freeze, because your progress wasn't connected to real use.
I've done that. I've been like, wow, my listening is amazing because I understood the same YouTuber for the 15th time.
Exactly. Familiarity is flattering, but learning is a bit rude. Learning makes you work. So instead of constantly asking, did I finish my lesson? Maybe the better question is, did English show up in a real way today?
And to be clear, this isn't anti-tracking. It's more like track the right thing, because you can track a streak and still be terrified to speak.
That's the point. So what do the people who keep moving actually review? They don't sit there like a manager saying, "Where's my KPI?" They ask more human questions.
Like, did I have any contact with English today? Not, did I conquer Unit 7?
Yes, or even, did I hear something and understand the main idea? Did I reply to someone without translating every word? Things that connect to life, so you stop making English a performance and it becomes a presence.
Also, when you ask those questions, you calm down because you realise you're not failing every day. You're just human with a job and a brain and a life.
That calmness matters because it keeps you coming back tomorrow. If your review is always punishment, you'll avoid it. If your review is gentle, you'll continue.
And there's another funny thing. People who audit themselves a lot often end up talking about English more than actually touching English. They'll spend 20 minutes planning, then they're like, well, that's enough for today.
I've definitely done that. It's like you feel tired from thinking about learning, so you skip the learning. So the simplest shift here is keep some awareness, but change the scoreboard. Less, what did I complete? More, did English show up?
And once you change the scoreboard, you stop feeling like you're constantly behind. You start feeling like, oh, I'm actually in this, which makes it easier to keep your English Wi-Fi stable.
Exactly, and it sets up the next thing, because even with the right scoreboard, there's still a huge factor: your emotions. If English always comes with stress, you'll still disappear. So next, we should talk about how the fast improvers protect the vibe. Alright, emotions. The bit everyone pretends doesn't matter and then it quietly controls everything. Because you can have the best plan, the best app, the prettiest notebook, but if English makes you feel rubbish, you will disappear. Not forever, just long enough to go cold again, and then you're paying the restart cost again.
And you'll call it laziness, even though it's basically self-protection. Your brain's like, that thing hurts, let's not.
Exactly, and the fast improvers, they're weirdly good at avoiding that spiral. Not because they're fragile, but because they're practical. They know one brutal truth. If they have a really frustrating English day, they'll vanish for 3 days. So they'd rather choose a version they can actually keep doing.
This is so real. People think progress comes from pushing harder, but half the time, pushing harder just makes you hate it. Then you don't do it at all.
Yes, so they protect the vibe. Sometimes it's listening instead of reading. Sometimes it's watching something short instead of forcing a long lesson. Sometimes it's speaking 2 sentences, then stopping before it turns into a painful mess. It's not a lack of ambition, it's pacing.
I love pacing. It makes it sound like a marathon, not a punishment. Because the punishment approach is basically, if I suffer enough, I deserve fluency.
And that's where people get stuck. They tie English to pain. So the moment they sit down, their body reacts like, oh no, not this again. Which is why, in education psychology, there's this very stable idea that learning emotions matter. If you feel anxious, bored, or frustrated, you're less likely to keep going. But if you feel some control and you can see why it's worth doing, it becomes much easier to continue.
In other words, it's not just motivation, it's whether your brain feels safe enough to return tomorrow.
Exactly. And safe sounds dramatic, but it's very ordinary. Safe can mean I can do a small version of this. Safe can mean I'm allowed to be imperfect. Safe can mean I'm not going to shame myself for missing a day.
This is where the why do I hate vocabulary question comes in. Because the moment someone says memorize words, loads of people want to escape. But if you say watch a YouTube clip, suddenly they're like, oh, go on then.
Which looks like laziness, but it's not. It's your brain choosing a way you can survive. Because vocabulary drilling often comes with judgment. It feels like school. It feels like failure is waiting.
Exactly. School trauma is real, and you can hear it in people's voices. They don't say, I don't like flashcards. They say, I'm terrible at English. That's not a preference, that's an identity crisis.
Yes, and that's why the fast improvers are strategic. They choose forms that give them a small win, not because they need praise, but because a small win keeps the loop going. If you keep collecting tiny I can do this moments, you stay in the game.
It connects to everything we've talked about. No off-season is basically vibe management. Good enough English is vibe management. Stop auditing yourself is vibe management too. It's all about making English feel like life, not like court.
That's such a good way to put it, because if English feels like God, you'll avoid it. Every session feels like you're about to be judged. And the funny thing is, nobody is judging you. It's just you.
And you're a very harsh judge. No mercy, no snacks, no breaks.
Exactly. So protecting the vibe can be as simple as giving yourself permission to do the lighter version. Some days you do more, some days you do less, but you don't break the relationship with English.
Because once you break it, you don't just lose progress, you lose trust. You start believing, I never stick to anything, and that belief is what keeps you stuck.
Exactly. So if you're listening and you've been thinking, why do I keep disappearing? It might not be discipline, it might be pain. You're avoiding the pain, not the language. So the solution is make it less painful.
And that's surprisingly practical. It's not believe in yourself. It's stop choosing the version that makes you quit.
Once you do that, you can finally see what the real secret is. Because we've talked about a lot of things, but if you had to steal just one habit, what would it be? That's where we're heading next.
Alright, so after all that, if someone's thinking, cool, but what do I actually steal from this? I think the annoying truth is the fast improvers don't have a secret trick. They just made one decision early on. English is not allowed to disappear from their life.
That's so simple, it's almost rude. Like you want to hack and they give you consistency.
I know it's not glamorous, but it explains everything we talked about. No off-season is just don't let it vanish. Good enough English is use it even when it's messy. Stop auditing yourself is measure presence, not perfection. And protecting the vibe is don't make English hurt. It's all the same decision showing up in different outfits.
Different outfits, same problem. And the problem is, most people treat English like a project they sometimes pick up. So it disappears. Then it comes back as guilt.
Exactly. So if you steal one thing, make it this. Have a minimum version. Not a perfect plan, not a full routine, just a minimum that keeps English in the room.
Minimum version is such a relief because it means you're not failing on busy days. You're just doing the small version.
It can be tiny, like truly tiny. One short clip, one message, 2 minutes of listening. Not to learn loads, just to keep the connection alive.
It's like sending a friend a meme. You're not having a deep life chat. You're just saying, I'm still here.
I think people underestimate how long this takes. They do it for 3 days, then they judge themselves for not being a new person. But habit research is quite honest about this. For some people it can be a few weeks, for others it's months. There's a famous range people cite, something like 18 to 254 days, and the average is around 66. So don't use 3 days of excitement to sentence yourself for life.
that line is brutal, that it's comforting. Because if it takes longer than you expected, it doesn't mean you're broken, it just means you're normal.
The goal isn't to become a different person. The goal is to make English show up often enough that it stops feeling dramatic. Then you don't need motivation speeches. You don't need a perfect Monday. You just keep going.
Honestly, you don't need to turn English into a fitness boot camp. You just need it to have the same level of presence as brushing your teeth. Not exciting, not a personality trait, just part of the day.
Exactly, and if you've listened this far, you've already done it today. English has shown up in your life for 20-something minutes? So genuinely well done. That counts.
That's a win. And if you like this kind of chat, where we're not yelling tips at you, but we're still moving somewhere, do the usual stuff. Hit like, subscribe, and share it with that friend who always says, "I'll start next week."
Yes, lovingly expose them. All right, we'll leave it there for today. Keep your minimum version, keep English in the room, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week. Take care.